reached an age where my life expectancy is less than the amount of time it takes for one's bad habits to catch up with one. Statistically, I should look forward to another 15 years, possibly 20. I failed to have a heart attack in my 50s or develop cancer in my 60s, so I figure that nothing short of skydiving will push me towards the wrong end of the bell curve. I feel like I could last another 30 years. For some reason, well, 30 years seems a lot less depressing a prospect. Genetically speaking, I am on pretty certain grounds, as my grandparents and parents died in their 90s, even though, if my relatives are anything to go by, the last 10 years of that could be in a state of frustration and constant doctor's appointments. But that, of course, won't happen to me. I'm immortal. So, given that my fate is pretty much assured, I thought I should take up some bad habits. Perhaps I should drink more. I am a good drunk. Other people, when drunk, are often not very good at it. Their benders end in arguments, violence and vomit. They also end up fat, wrinkled and looking for a liver transplant. But me, I become affable, not necessarily talkative, but capable of conversation with strangers and capable of being amused by other people's wit, charms, looks, and outrageous opinions. Having seen videos of myself drunk, I perhaps am not quite as rational as I believe myself to be, but without alcohol, I am not social. I'm solitary and irritated by other people. They interrupt the flow of my thoughts, never share my interests, and all too often are not witty, beautiful, wise, or charming. In fact, all my miserable moments have been down to people. Mosquitoes are a close second, but insecticide is legal, whereas homicide not so much. But stick a few gins in me and humanity becomes beautiful. However, I already have my fair share of alcohol. My lockdown treat is a Friday night bottle of wine with my wife, but the main pleasure is a social one, and merely sitting with my wife drinking seems less necessary. I already know she is beautiful, wise and witty, and alcohol makes no difference. What other vices can I entertain? Gluttony. Well, yes, I like food, but I like the drama and the sense of occasion of haute cuisine rather than junk food. Not that I couldn't murder a decent burger with blue cheese topping right now. But I live in Malaysia, where haute cuisine and decent junk food are rare commodities. Every Malaysian, however, tells me that Malaysian food is the best in the world. This is where I need a decent slug of gin to stop myself from rolling my eyes and pointing out just how awful, lukewarm, sodden, shrimp pasty laden food is. If I had not lived in Asia for 30 years and pretty much eaten every kind of cuisine on the planet, I would doubt my judgment, but no. So despite there being plenty of half-decent seafood in Indian restaurants, Gordon Ramsay's well-seasoned herb just does not exist. Thus, gluttony here would be just about getting fat. With food and booze off my list of life-threatening vices, I'm left with smoking. There have been studies suggesting that nicotine staves off dementia, though maybe that is because ciggies kill off people before Alzheimer's sets in. I have never been a smoker, despite the teenage belief that casually flipping out a cigarette would impress teenage girls. A few puffs and all I felt was that I had inhaled smoke. The relaxant that nicotine was supposed to be never kicked in, and persevering merely made me sick. How this could be highly addictive was a mystery to me. You would have thought that the amount of secondary smoke I must have inhaled by the time I reached adulthood primed me for a good addiction. My father sat in his armchair filling an ashtray while watching TV, and my grandfather bellowed out huge swathes of smoke from his pipe. Christmases descended into a smoky haze as cigars were pulled out, and Every cinema had an ashtray on the back of the seat full to the brim, and one was as fascinated by the smoke rising through the light as one was in Walt Disney's cartoon dwarfs. Despite its obvious popularity, smoking was eventually branded deadly and suitable only for misfits who wanted to stand around the back entrance hunched and puffing in the rain. It became uncool. Long after I missed the moment when it would have been seen as a rite of passage. But then the shisha bar came along, where one could believe that bubbling smoke through water somehow made it safe. Better still, the apple mint flavouring, the shiny glass bulb, and the ritual of some swivel-hipped tanned Turk preparing the pipe attracted women in droves. One now had a whole social scene resplendent with tapas and a room full of young women channeling Sex and the City and supermodel dress sense. If that had been my teen scene and my grandad had stoked up a hubbly-bubbly with his old shag, I would probably have succumbed to its charms. Not that I did not try. The shisha bar hit Hong Kong, where I lived for 24 years, when I was in my 50s, and the vibe of a shisha bar found a role for me. I was Mr. Big on the block. Well, I still do not care to inhale, but I could at least puff on these contraptions with no ill effects, and with a jug of sangria I became wise, witty, and the ever-approachable centre of attention of the bold and the beautiful. Even so, clouds of perfume smoke were just that to me, just smoke, the deep inhalation and satisfied slump that others took from the experience never quite hit me. Wired energy was more my style, and for that matter was the tone of most of my restless friends. Bursts of obsessive sleepless work coupled with a search for the next earner are the hallmarks of most freelance lives. Snooze and you lose is the motto. But as I said, I'm at a funny age. When I hit 60, we retired to Malaysia, where laid back is considered too much effort, and left me with bouts of twitchy indolence repurposed as YouTube projects awash with irony. Other humans recommend things like meditation as a means of calming the troubled soul, but its woke, comatose vibe just sets me off on a tirade against patronising, entitled, middle-class, virtue-signalling hypocrisy, and I'm chewing the carpet again. I decided that despite my experience, I should seek the good smoke. The shisha bar had welcomed the 50-year-old silver fox, and so what would welcome the grey grizzly in his 60s? The slogan that it is more than a cigar, it is a smoke, began to make sense. A cigar is supposed to encourage a calm appreciation of the good things in life. A cigar is an old man's self-satisfied stance whilst on the brink of his well-considered last and lasting contribution to the world. It gives one the mental strength to think of the final act and how to make it a masterpiece, or something like that. But the only cigar I had tried had felt like inhaling the contents of an old mill chimney stack, which was not a pleasant experience. YouTube came to the rescue, though. I discovered that one is not supposed to inhale. Fantastic. And given the amount of nicotine in the cigar, one could suck up the smoke and let it deposit the drug in one's mouth. Thus, they were safer than cigarettes and on a par with shisha for a reasonably pleasant taste. I convinced myself that it was worth a try. I purchased a box of cigars. The box looked very nice. The cigars had a substantial look and feel to them, though smelt somewhat like the contents of a horse box, which perhaps was meant to be comforting, a sort of aroma resplendent of images of stallions frolicking on stud farms. At least that's what I told myself. So I braved that initial waft and worked out how to cut the ends and get a decent draw from the things. I had Cuban cigars, which I understand to be the best, and I had checked what to expect. I was supposed to relish the smell and the flavour and savour those chocolatey overtones, those hints of vanilla, a smidgen of hay, and then let the smoke slowly drift out my nose to gain that sense of nirvana that a good smoke was meant to offer. What the aficionados fail to mention is that when there was an inch of ash on the end, the slightest move sends a cascade of ash over ash and sparks over one's keyboard, and the flavours, as mentioned, never really engaged or emerged. So no matter how much I tried to tell myself they existed, all I tasted was that ash, and the smoke seemed to go mostly into my eyes rather than anywhere useful. I persevered with the box and tried to convince myself there was a pleasant buzz around about the fifth puff. Though I could not be certain, but I could be certain was that a big cigar usually ended with a good clear out of the bowels, which might be a good thing given the enforced sedentary nature of my present lockdown life, but it lacked what a vice was supposed to have: coolness and style. Maybe it was the type of cigar that I had, the type deemed suitable for beginners, so I stumped up with the cash and got in some heavy-duty, villainous-looking things that I am sure Winston Churchill must have left his teeth marks on. Well matured and rank with nicotine, they were supposed to be the bee's knees. I tried to imagine myself casually walking into a boardroom, lighting up a big one and projecting the sort of power that low-grade, cigar-chomping British media mogul of the last century must have projected. Maybe such power requires a steady sense of disappointment coupled with a grimace at that bitter flavour. But where is the buzz? Where is the drug-induced lapse into pleasure? How one can get addicted to this stuff is still a mystery to me. One can only assume that to appreciate them, one really needs a big leather armchair in a Whitehall club full of ministers of state whose idea of fun is to parade about the moors, waiting for some Scotsman to waft a few grouse before their shotguns. The smoke they blow thus goes right up someone else's backside and says, "I burn money, and you little oiks run around doing as I say." Well, that must be their appeal. And for the actual thing itself, without all the accoutrements, well, it seems to me to be just a bundle of leaves that one sets fire to. Alas, the corridors of imperial power seem somewhat close to me, but even if one merely carries an unlit cigar in some sort of badge of authority that might fool people, but those days are long gone, and so in the end, cigars are just not cool enough for me. Which brings me to wondering what vice I can get addicted to. What pleasure am I missing out on that medical science has forbidden or legislated out of the range of the masses? What thing has the requisite image that creates the self-satisfaction that I crave? Alcohol, it would seem, is the only thing that actually works, though here in Malaysia it appears to be far more disapproved of than any of this dull and deadly puffing. But it only really does its job in a bar, and a bar of a certain high quality at that, and the damned things are closed, and frankly there have never been that many that I felt enhance my own little sense of self-worth. But if they were open, suddenly the image of a grey-haired old geezer with a flat cap stuck in a corner with a pint of mild comes to mind, rather than that of a man at the centre of something that's happening. And being at the centre of the action is, well, that is the truly addictive thing. That is the thing one truly craves. All suggestions for some suitable bad habits are welcome. My imagination has run out. I have no idea what is cool anymore, nor who I should seek to impress. The wisdom of age has highlighted that everything is just a performance, and an actor needs a play of some sort. As some of my actor friends now bemoaning the closure of theatres would tell you, dementia begins to look like a decent option. But before that, I would like to try a double dose of AstraZeneca with the additional booster of young blood. Otherwise, I can see some TV news puff piece about an attention-seeking skydiving ancient looming on the horizon.